Tonight, a special treat. Former California governor and action star Arnold Schwarzenegger sat down with CNN's Dana Bash.
Trump is a failed leader. He will go down in history as the worst president ever. The good thing is that he soon will be as irrelevant as an old tweet.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's bombshell television appearance sent shockwaves across the nation as he launched a scathing attack on newly elected President Donald Trump and his marriage to First Lady Melania Trump. The former governor of California and Hollywood action star did not hold back, leveling allegations that Trump had been unfaithful to his wife and painting their marriage as a sham. The moment Schwarzenegger took the stage, the air was charged with anticipation. What followed was an explosive takedown that left no room for ambiguity, throwing Trump's personal life into the national spotlight at a critical moment when his administration was just beginning to take shape. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. Schwarzenegger's words carried weight not just because of his celebrity status, but also because of his own history with Trump. The two had long been entangled in a public feud, particularly after Schwarzenegger took over hosting duties on The Apprentice and was openly mocked by Trump for failing to deliver high ratings. Their animosity had simmered for years. But this latest attack was of an entirely different magnitude. This was not about television or political rivalry. It was about Trump's integrity as a husband and the very foundation of his marriage. The accusations centered on Trump's alleged affairs, a subject that had been whispered about for years, but had never been dissected with such force on national television. Schwarzenegger's remarks painted a picture of a deeply dysfunctional marriage, one that was held together not by love or mutual respect, but by convenience and public perception. The First Lady, long seen as an enigmatic and distant figure, was thrust into the spotlight in a way that left many wondering about the truth behind the glamorous facade. It was a devastating blow. Trump had just secured the presidency, an unprecedented achievement for a man with no political experience. But now he found himself mired in a scandal that threatened to overshadow his victory. Schwarzenegger's words carried the power of revelation, making it impossible for anyone to ignore the personal drama that was unfolding within the walls of the White House. The accusations weren't just gossip. They were delivered with a conviction that made them impossible to dismiss as baseless attacks. The implications were staggering. For decades, Trump had been a fixture in tabloids, his relationships scrutinized, his affairs speculated upon. But never before had someone of Schwarzenegger's stature taken such a direct and public stance against him in this manner. The former governor's remarks suggested that Melania was aware of her husband's infidelities, but had chosen to endure them, a claim that would inevitably lead to more questions about the nature of their relationship. Was she merely playing the role of First Lady while tolerating Trump's indiscretions? Had she ever considered leaving? Or was she trapped in a situation that offered no escape? Schwarzenegger's accusations also brought into focus the moral character of the new president. His personal life had been a point of controversy for years, but his supporters had largely dismissed concerns about his treatment of women as irrelevant to his ability to lead. Now, with such a high-profile attack, it was impossible to separate the personal from the political. If Trump's marriage was built on deception and betrayal, what did that say about his ability to lead the country with honesty and integrity? The timing of the revelation was also crucial. As Trump prepared to take on the immense responsibilities of the presidency, he was now faced with a deeply personal crisis. His marriage was no longer a private matter. It had become national news, a spectacle that could not be ignored. Schwarzenegger had ensured that Trump's past and present would be scrutinized in a way that no president had ever experienced before. The spectacle played out on television screens across the country, leaving viewers in shock. The imagery of Schwarzenegger, a larger-than-life figure himself, dismantling Trump's carefully crafted image was something out of a political thriller. It was not just an attack on a man, it was an attack on an institution, on the very idea that the first family represented stability and unity. The American people had elected Trump based on his promises of strength and success, but now they were being forced to confront the possibility that his personal life was a mess of lies and betrayals. For Melania, the accusations put her in an incredibly difficult position. She had long been viewed as a reluctant participant in Trump's political ambitions, often seeming distant and uninterested in the role of First Lady. Now, she was being asked to either confirm or deny the allegations, something that could have profound consequences for both her marriage and her public image. If she remained silent, it would only fuel speculation that Schwarzenegger's claims were true. If she spoke out, she risked either defending a husband accused of infidelity or admitting to a deeply troubled relationship. Schwarzenegger's remarks also had broader cultural implications. They reignited conversations about power, loyalty, and the compromises that come with being in the public eye. Was Melania a victim of circumstances, a woman forced to endure humiliation for the sake of appearances? Or was she complicit, willingly playing along with the illusion of a happy marriage? The public was left to speculate, dissecting every past interaction between the Trumps for clues that might reveal the truth. The moment was also significant because of Schwarzenegger's own history. He had faced allegations of infidelity himself, and his marriage to Maria Shriver had famously ended in scandal. Some saw his attack on Trump as hypocritical, a case of one flawed man exposing another, but others viewed it as a powerful statement from someone who had lived through a similar experience and knew firsthand the damage that deception could cause. His words carried the weight of experience, making them all the more compelling. The fallout from Schwarzenegger's revelations was immediate. Political commentators debated the impact of the allegations, wondering whether they would tarnish Trump's presidency before it had even begun. Supporters rushed to defend him, dismissing the claims as yet another attempt to undermine his leadership. But the damage had been done. Even those who remained loyal to Trump could not ignore the uncomfortable questions now swirling around his marriage. The accusations also forced the media to grapple with the fine line between personal and political scandal. In the past, presidents had faced scrutiny over their personal lives, but never before had such direct and damning allegations been made so early in an administration. Was it fair to judge Trump's ability to lead based on the state of his marriage? Or was it an essential consideration, a reflection of his character and values? These were the questions now dominating the national conversation. At its core, Schwarzenegger's attack was about more than just Trump and Melania. It was about the nature of power and the cost of maintaining an illusion. The American public had elected a man who prided himself on his business acumen and strength, but now they were being asked to consider whether that image was built on deception. If Trump could not maintain honesty in his marriage, could he be trusted to lead with integrity? The moment was also a reminder of how quickly narratives could shift in the world of politics and celebrity. Trump had long been the one in control of the media, shaping his own story and dismissing criticisms with ease. But now, the script had been flipped. Schwarzenegger had seized control of the narrative, forcing Trump to respond to allegations that he could no longer brush aside. It was a rare moment where the president, so accustomed to being the one on the offensive, found himself on the defensive. The broadcast continued to dominate headlines long after Schwarzenegger had left the stage. The weight of his words lingered, their implications impossible to ignore. Trump had built his brand on the image of success and control, but now that image had been shattered. The cracks in his marriage were no longer rumors. They had been laid bare for the world to see, and whether the allegations were true or not, they had already achieved their purpose. They had forced the nation to reconsider the man they had just elected. The intensity of Arnold Schwarzenegger's accusations against Donald Trump and the impact they had on public discourse was unlike anything seen before in American political history. The personal lives of presidents had always been the subject of speculation, but Schwarzenegger's televised remarks added an entirely new dimension to the scrutiny of Trump's character, one that extended far beyond politics. His attack wasn't just about Trump's alleged affairs or the fragility of his marriage to Melania. It was about the fundamental question of credibility, the ability to lead a nation with integrity, and whether personal failures in marriage could be reflective of larger ethical shortcomings in governance. The visual of Schwarzenegger delivering his remarks in such an authoritative, confident manner gave them additional weight. Here was a man who had been both a Hollywood superstar and a political figure, someone who understood power and influence firsthand, directly challenging the legitimacy of Trump's carefully cultivated image. Schwarzenegger's delivery wasn't hesitant or filled with the kind of vague innuendo that usually accompanies political jabs. It was a full-throated, unapologetic condemnation of Trump as a husband and, by extension, as a man. He framed Trump's infidelities not as isolated personal failings, but as symptoms of a deeper dishonesty, one that had infiltrated every aspect of his public and private life. The immediacy of the fallout was evident in the way the media scrambled to dissect Schwarzenegger's claims. News networks ran endless segments debating whether there was truth to the accusations, whether Melania had been knowingly complicit, and how this revelation would impact Trump's ability to govern. Journalists combed through past interviews, photographs, and interactions between Donald and Melania, looking for any signs of discord that might support Schwarzenegger's narrative. Experts in body language analyzed their public appearances, scrutinizing every smile, every handhold, every expression of affection, or lack thereof. The national conversation turned into an obsessive examination of the Trump's marriage, with every detail magnified and reinterpreted through the lens of Schwarzenegger's accusations. For Melania, the scrutiny was perhaps the most unbearable. While she had never been an outspoken First Lady in the way that Hillary Clinton or Michelle Obama had been, she had also never been placed under this level of pressure. Schwarzenegger's words had stripped away her ability to remain a passive figure in the background of Trump's presidency. She could no longer be seen merely as an accessory to his political ambitions. She was now at the center of a scandal that demanded answers. Every move she made was analyzed with a new intensity, and the more she avoided commenting on the allegations, the more the speculation grew. Some questioned whether Melania had ever truly had agency in her marriage. The perception of her as a silent, almost reluctant First Lady gained new traction, with commentators wondering if she was trapped in a situation that offered her no viable exit. Schwarzenegger's remarks had framed her not just as the wife of an allegedly unfaithful man, but as someone enduring public humiliation on an unimaginable scale. The narrative took on a life of its own, with some sympathizing with her and others suggesting that she had knowingly chosen this path for the sake of status and wealth. The political ramifications of Schwarzenegger's words also could not be ignored. Even as Trump's supporters rushed to dismiss the accusations as irrelevant or exaggerated, there was no denying that they had shifted the perception of his presidency. Trump had built his campaign on the promise of strength, control, and an image of unwavering dominance, but Schwarzenegger had pierced that illusion. The idea of a man who demanded loyalty from his allies while failing to uphold it in his personal life created an uncomfortable contradiction. Could a leader who allegedly betrayed the trust of his own wife be expected to keep his word to the American people? Schwarzenegger's credibility as a messenger also played a crucial role in the controversy. His own history of scandal was well documented, yet that very history lent his words an air of authority. He spoke not as a perfect moral figure, but as someone who had lived through the consequences of infidelity, deception, and public disgrace. His own marriage had ended in spectacular fashion when it was revealed that he had fathered a child outside of his relationship with Maria Shriver. For some, this made him a hypocrite. For others, it made his words all the more powerful. Here was a man who knew firsthand how deception could unravel a marriage, warning the public that Trump's personal failings were not mere rumors, but patterns of behavior with serious consequences. The way the scandal unfolded also highlighted a major shift in political culture. In the past, presidential affairs were often covered up, dismissed, or excused under the guise of separating personal lives from professional duties. But Schwarzenegger's attack demonstrated that such separation was no longer possible in the modern era. The public was no longer willing to turn a blind eye to the private misconduct of its leaders, especially when it seemed to reflect a broader pattern of dishonesty. Trump's past was already littered with allegations of inappropriate behavior toward women, from crude remarks caught on tape to lawsuits alleging misconduct. Schwarzenegger's statements connected all these threads into a single damning narrative: that Trump's character was defined by betrayal, deceit, and an utter disregard for those closest to him. The implications also extended beyond Trump himself. The Republican Party, which had already faced backlash for rallying behind a candidate with such a controversial history, was now forced to either defend Trump's personal integrity or risk distancing itself from him. For a party that had long positioned itself as the champion of traditional family values, this was a particularly difficult situation. How could they continue to push conservative ideals while standing behind a man accused of repeated infidelity? Schwarzenegger had effectively forced them into an ideological corner, exposing the hypocrisy at the heart of their unwavering support. At the same time, the controversy underscored the blurred lines between politics, entertainment, and personal scandal. Trump's presidency was already marked by a reality TV-style approach to leadership, where drama and spectacle were as much a part of his political brand as his policies. Schwarzenegger's attack only amplified this dynamic, turning the presidency into an even greater media circus. Viewers weren't just watching for policy decisions or legislative updates. They were following the twists and turns of a real-life soap opera, where personal betrayals and public confrontations dominated the headlines. The global response was equally revealing. Foreign leaders and international media outlets covered the story with a mix of fascination and incredulity, portraying the United States as a nation consumed by tabloid-style scandals. The image of the American president, already controversial on the world stage, took another hit, as the allegations painted him as not just politically unpredictable, but personally untrustworthy. Allies questioned what this meant for diplomatic relationships. If Trump could not maintain loyalty in his marriage, could he be counted on to honor international commitments? The narrative of deception and betrayal extended beyond the personal and into the realm of global politics. Schwarzenegger's accusations also reignited debates about gender, power, and the way public figures are held accountable for their actions. The discussion was not just about Trump, but about the broader expectations placed on women like Melania, women who are often expected to endure public humiliation for the sake of preserving their husbands' careers. Many questioned whether she was truly free to leave, or if she had been conditioned to tolerate infidelity as an unspoken rule of power. The conversation expanded to include historical parallels, with comparisons drawn to Jacqueline Kennedy, Hillary Clinton, and other first ladies who had faced personal betrayals while in the public eye. As the days passed, Schwarzenegger's words continued to reverberate, shaping the way the early days of Trump's presidency were perceived. His administration, which should have been focused on policy initiatives and setting the tone for the next 4 years, was now entangled in a deeply personal scandal that threatened to overshadow everything else. The focus was no longer on economic plans, healthcare reforms, or foreign policy. It was on whether the president had betrayed his wife and what that betrayal said about his leadership. What made Schwarzenegger's attack so effective was not just the content of his accusations, but the way he delivered them. His words were not speculative or cautious. They were direct, unwavering, and delivered with the kind of confidence that made them impossible to ignore. He did not present his statements as mere gossip, but as indisputable truths that demanded acknowledgement. This made it all the more difficult for Trump and his supporters to brush them aside. The accusations lingered in the air, refusing to fade, shaping public perception in ways that even Trump's most ardent denials could not fully erase. The aftershocks of Arnold Schwarzenegger's stunning remarks reverberated throughout the political, media, and social landscapes, creating an unprecedented level of scrutiny on Donald Trump's personal life and presidency. What had initially seemed like an entertainment-driven feud between two titanic figures of pop culture had now escalated into a full-blown national crisis. The sheer weight of Schwarzenegger's words made it impossible for Trump, his team, or even the Republican Party to dismiss the allegations outright. Instead, the accusations set into motion a chain reaction that altered the course of Trump's early presidency, shifting the narrative away from governance and policy toward personal scandal and moral character. The manner in which Schwarzenegger delivered his attack added an extraordinary level of potency to his claims. Unlike anonymous sources or unverified tabloid reports, which could be easily waved away as fake news, Schwarzenegger spoke as a man of experience, someone who had occupied political office and had himself been under the public microscope. His reputation lent credibility to his words, making it difficult for even the staunchest Trump supporters to ignore the weight of his claims. The details of Trump's alleged affairs, while not entirely new to the public consciousness, suddenly took on an entirely different dimension when articulated so directly by a political figure who had known Trump personally. One of the most immediate and unavoidable consequences of Schwarzenegger's comments was their impact on Melania Trump, As the nation's first lady, she had previously been allowed a level of detachment from her husband's political battles, often remaining silent and selectively engaging in public appearances. But Schwarzenegger's words had effectively forced her into a battle she could not avoid. Overnight, she was transformed from a largely ceremonial figure into the central character of a national scandal. Media outlets scoured her history, dissecting her expressions in past interviews for any hint of dissatisfaction, unhappiness, or even quiet resignation regarding the state of her marriage. The scrutiny on Melania was particularly intense because of the way she had conducted herself publicly throughout Trump's rise to power. She had often appeared distant and cold in public interactions with her husband, a stark contrast to the warm and affectionate dynamic seen between previous first couples. Moments that had previously been dismissed as mere personal quirks, her reluctance to hold his hand in public, her seemingly emotionless expressions during key speeches, her minimal involvement in his campaign, were suddenly recast in a much darker light. The speculation over whether she was simply enduring a marriage of convenience reached a fever pitch, with television analysts and relationship experts weighing in on what Schwarzenegger's accusations meant for her future. But beyond the personal implications for the Trumps, Schwarzenegger's attack had a profound impact on the political landscape. The presidency had always been an office where moral authority played a significant role, even if past leaders had been known to fall short in their personal lives. From Bill Clinton's infamous scandal with Monica Lewinsky to John F. Kennedy's rumored affairs, history had shown that personal indiscretions did not necessarily prevent presidents from governing effectively. However, Schwarzenegger's accusations framed Trump's alleged infidelities in a way that tied them directly to his ability to lead. The argument was no longer about whether a president's personal life was separate from his political role. It was about whether dishonesty in one sphere signaled a deeper inability to act with integrity in another. The Republican Party found itself in an impossible situation. Having spent decades branding itself as the party of family values, it now faced an overwhelming contradiction. How could GOP leaders defend Trump against these allegations while still maintaining their moral high ground? Conservative commentators who had previously championed strong traditional marriages were forced to either outright dismiss Schwarzenegger's comments or remain silent, knowing that any attempt to justify Trump's behavior would expose their own ideological inconsistency. Many within the party had already been forced to tolerate Trump's past indiscretions for the sake of political expediency, but Schwarzenegger's attack made it harder for them to do so without appearing completely hypocritical. Among the American public, reactions were deeply polarized. Trump's most ardent supporters dismissed Schwarzenegger's words as an act of revenge, a personal vendetta stemming from their long-standing rivalry. They insisted that Schwarzenegger was simply leveraging his platform to humiliate Trump, capitalizing on an opportunity to weaken him at the height of his power. To them, the accusations were nothing more than another attempt by Hollywood elites to undermine a president who had defied the establishment. On the other hand, Trump's detractors saw Schwarzenegger's comments as confirmation of everything they had suspected about his character all along. They viewed the allegations as yet another reason why Trump was unfit to hold the highest office in the land. The media frenzy that followed Schwarzenegger's statements led to an explosion of coverage across television, newspapers, and social media. Entire segments were dedicated to analyzing the validity of the claims, with investigative reporters seeking out potential witnesses, former Trump associates, and past alleged romantic partners to provide additional insight. It was no longer a simple feud between two celebrities. It was a political firestorm that had captivated the nation. The shift in focus was unmistakable. Political journalists who had once been discussing policy proposals were now dissecting the most intimate details of Trump's marriage, debating whether Melania would remain by his side or if this scandal would lead to an eventual public fracture. For Trump himself, the scandal presented an existential threat. His entire brand was built upon the image of dominance. Whether in business, politics, or personal life, he had always positioned himself as the ultimate winner. Schwarzenegger's words directly undermined that image, painting Trump not as a strong, successful leader, but as a man incapable of even maintaining loyalty within his own marriage. The blow to his ego was perhaps as damaging as the political implications. For someone who prided himself on control, the idea that his personal failures were being aired so publicly was likely intolerable. In the days and weeks following Schwarzenegger's remarks, the question of whether Trump would respond became a matter of great speculation. His usual tactic when faced with controversy was to attack his critics head-on, using social media as his primary weapon. However, the personal nature of Schwarzenegger's accusations made retaliation far more complicated. An outright denial would require addressing deeply personal issues in a way that might inadvertently lend credibility to the allegations. Ignoring the comments entirely risked allowing Schwarzenegger's narrative to take root without challenge. It was a dilemma with no easy solution. While Trump had weathered numerous scandals before, the nature of this one was uniquely damaging. Unlike financial controversies, campaign-related scandals, or partisan battles, this was about something universally understood: marriage, trust, and personal integrity. No amount of political spin could erase the underlying human emotions involved. Schwarzenegger had not just attacked Trump as a politician, he had exposed him as a flawed husband, a man who could not be trusted even within the most sacred of personal commitments. The long-term consequences of Schwarzenegger's words extended far beyond Trump himself. They reshaped public discourse around the relationship between private morality and political leadership. Future candidates and presidents would inevitably face increased scrutiny over their personal lives, with the expectation that character and integrity mattered just as much as policy positions. The days of separating personal and political lives were over. Schwarzenegger had ensured that. In an era where political discourse was already deeply divisive, Schwarzenegger's remarks managed to cut through the noise in a way that few other critiques had. His words carried a kind of cultural significance that transcended politics, forcing Americans to reconsider not just their president, but the standards to which they held their leaders. It was a moment of reckoning, a confrontation with uncomfortable truths that could not be ignored. Schwarzenegger had done what few had managed before. He had taken the most powerful man in the world and revealed him not as an invincible force, but as a deeply flawed human being, vulnerable to the same personal failures as anyone else. As the dust settled, the legacy of Schwarzenegger's comments remained, lingering in the national consciousness long after the initial shock had faded. The impact was undeniable. He had not just delivered an attack, he had set a precedent, establishing that personal integrity was no longer something that could be dismissed as irrelevant in politics. The debate he had ignited would continue for years to come, shaping the way future leaders were judged, scrutinized, and ultimately held accountable. His words had changed the conversation in ways that could not be undone, leaving an indelible mark on the political and cultural landscape. As the nation absorbed the magnitude of Arnold Schwarzenegger's revelations, the broader cultural implications became impossible to ignore. His remarks had not only placed Trump's marriage under a microscope, but had also reignited discussions about the nature of power, masculinity, and the expectations placed upon public figures. In an era where political figures were increasingly scrutinized for their personal conduct, Schwarzenegger's attack signaled a shift in the public's tolerance for deception, even in personal matters. It underscored the reality that no amount of political success could fully insulate a leader from accountability when their private life failed to reflect the values they professed. The scandal also marked a turning point in how presidential image-making was perceived. While past presidents had relied on carefully curated narratives to maintain their reputations, Trump's presidency operated in a different realm, one where personal scandals could not simply be contained or dismissed through traditional means. The age of social media, relentless news cycles, and celebrity-driven politics had changed the game, making it impossible for any leader to escape the weight of personal scrutiny. Schwarzenegger's words had set a precedent, proving that even the most powerful figures could be publicly challenged in ways that reshaped their legacies forever. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Arnold Schwarzenegger's remarks about Trump's marriage and alleged affairs? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.